Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud. Today we're going to be talking about the retrograde cycles of both Mercury and Jupiter. Both of those planets are going to be stationing retrograde in the next week or so, and I'm going to break down all of the details associated with that and show you how that might unfold, and then talk a little bit about how we might navigate that energy moving forward. Hope that you're having a wonderful Friday afternoon out there. If you are joining me, please let me know in the chat. Let me know where you're stopping in from. It's always nice to see your beautiful faces in the chat today. Before we get started, I have a few announcements that I want to make. If you want to get a reading, you can go over to spencermichaud.com and click on the Book Now button. I have all sorts of things available for you over there. You can sign up for a natal reading. You can sign up for a transit reading if you're wanting to plan ahead to see how these retrogrades might affect you, or to get prepared for 2026. You can schedule a reading and get kind of start wrapping your head around this sort of things that are going to come in the next few months or the year ahead. I would love to work with you on an individual basis as well. You can also go over and visit the store at my website, spencermichaud.com, where I have pre-recorded webinars, including the Deccan series, where I go through all 36 faces within 12 separate webinars, the Dignity and Devotion series, where with my beautiful partner, Tanya Andrews, we break down the 7 traditional planets and talk about the magical applications of those planets and how to do an election and create an altar space and all of those types of wonderful things. And then you can also learn about the connection between tarot and astrology there as well. Speaking of Third Coast Mojo, my beautiful partner, Tanya Andrews, has a magical business, and she has all these wonderful oils, soaps, etc. that are magically elected, where we take an election, an astrological chart, and we try to find the best possible arrangement for the planets, and then we try to draw that energy through ritual practice into these wonderful products that you see here. We are, talking about Mercury retrograde today. We're talking about Mercury and its exile and malefic enclosure, out of bounds, all these challenges. And Mercury in Virgo is where Mercury is exalted at its best. So there are Mercury in Virgo products over at Third Coast Mojo that can probably help you through this somewhat challenging time, right? Where we're trying to pay attention to details, but sometimes it slips through the cracks. Mercury in Virgo can help you stay focused, can help you communicate in ways that will be beneficial to yourself and to others. So go check her out and support her on Etsy, Third Coast Mojo. You can also subscribe to my newsletter. That can help you know when we're going live. We're going live a little bit earlier today as we've experienced the time change in the Eastern time zone in the United States. So we're kind of staying in alignment with our natural rhythms, I guess you could say. But if you want to know when we're going live, subscribe to the newsletter. I also announce new products from Third Coast Mojo and keep you up to date on class offerings and what's going on in the sky. If you want to support the channel today, you can buy a super chat while we're live on YouTube. Really appreciate all of the people who are able to support the channel in that way. Or you can go to buymeacoffee.com, which is a way to support the channel and become a patron in that regard. It helps me keep the lights on here, keeps us doing this work, and really appreciate all of you who have been able to contribute. All right, friends. Announcements are done. Stellar Rendition is here. What's up, Stellar Rendition? Nice to see you. Hugs to me. Thank you. Appreciate that. I think we all need a little bit of some hugs in the last few weeks. We've been going through the grand water trines with a lot of planets moving through Scorpio and trining Jupiter and Cancer and Saturn and Neptune and Pisces, and just been a lot of shedding of skin, a lot of transitions, and saying goodbye to old forms and old identities and old belief systems. And yeah, being able to go through that process gracefully, I think, is going to be important as we move forward. And man, we're all living through it. So thank you for being here today, friend. Appreciate you. Okay. Yeah, and let me know if any of you are here in the chat. Let me know you're here. It's always nice to see your names and faces here. So we're talking about Mercury and Jupiter retrograde, right? And this is going to come up pretty shortly. We're going to have the first retrograde happening on the 9th of November. Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde. And it's a real interesting set of retrogrades because they're going switching directions so close together. So I think that talking about them together, I think will be helpful for us. I've got Leanne stopping in, says, hey, from the UK, I've been watching your lives more regularly and really enjoy them. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you, Leanne. Appreciate you. And thank you for stopping in from across the pond. I always love to see my international friends and love connecting with people all over the world. That's something that brings me a lot of joy. So appreciate you being here. And thank you for reaching out and letting me know that you're here in the chat. That really, it makes me feel good to see people benefiting from this work. Appreciate you. So Mercury and Jupiter retrograde. We have Mercury retrograding in Sagittarius 1. We'll break down the themes associated with that. We've got Jupiter retrograding in Cancer 3. I'll talk about the themes associated with that decan. But just to get a few big picture thoughts with this, first with the Mercury retrograde. Mercury is going to retrograde November the 9th. It is also out of bounds as we are talking today, which means that it is operating outside the normal way that it would be socially acceptable. It is outside of the rule of the king, which would, in traditional astrology, would be represented by the sun. So an out-of-bounds planet is traveling outside the normal declination path of the sun. How far above or below the ecliptic, this line that intersects the sky, kind of in this arc, when you look in the northern hemisphere, when you look to the south, all the planets will rise and set across that arc. And when a planet's out of bounds, it goes outside the normal height or kind of depth that the sun will rise over the course of a year. And Mercury, when it's out of bounds, we might be communicating a little bit differently than we normally would. We might be having a lot of thoughts and ideas that are outside the box, or we may be forced to have thoughts and ideas that are outside the box. Sometimes circumstances, maybe there's a circumstance in our life where we're shedding our skin and we're having to make a new start, and we have to start thinking in ways that we might not be normally comfortable thinking. We might be trying to embrace new ideas that the previous form wouldn't have led us down that path, but since we have to make new starts, we may have to work through that. We're also experiencing malefic enclosure of Mercury as I'm recording this. I'll tell you when that began and when that will end. But that's when Mars and Saturn are making aspects and kind of closing in the planet. So we might be feeling a lot of pressure and challenge with Mercury getting those sort of backed into a corner by Mars and Saturn. We'll also talk about Mercury's cazimi, which is a new start for Mercury. When Mercury is retrograding and going under the beams of the sun, it is getting ready for a renewal, and especially the retrograde period. We're going to be experiencing sort of this energy of going into the underworld of the psychopomp phase of Mercury. That's a fancy name for the guide of souls to the land of the dead. And we may be mining our past and our memories for ways to move forward and make new starts. Really, a lot of the wisdom that we have might come from our own intuition, from our own inner knowing, rather than from an external source. So those are themes and topics to consider as Mercury is going through that retrograde, out of bounds, malefic enclosure, cazimi, lots of Mercury things happening, right? And then, with Jupiter, we're going to be just talking about how Jupiter is moving retrograde in the third decan of Cancer, associated with scarcity versus surplus, and how we might move through the world in relationship with those ideals, how we might try to increase our abundance without diminishing others. We may have to review how we show up in those regards. We may have to review how we do business. We may have to review how we have exchanges and reciprocity with people. All of that's going to be up for debate, especially as we shed these forms that might no longer be providing vitality in our lives. So I will break that down for you. Checking back in with the chat here. We got some nice folks stopping in. Selene's Gateway is here. Nice to see you, Selene's Gateway. Love that. Love that. The Gateway of the Moon. Oh, it's Devin. No, Devin, you've got a new, is this your new channel? That's cool. So this is our friend Devin Malone. Got a new website and YouTube channel. Does some great work. Go make sure you go support them over there. So nice to see you, Devin. Hope everything's going your way over on the West Coast. Katie Lady is here, says Morena Spencer. Good morning from New Zealand. Awesome. Nice to see you. I believe, is there a kia ora is a greeting potentially? I think this is this is Karen. Okay, Karen. Yeah. I believe that yeah, thank you for telling me your names, friends, because YouTube has somehow changed people's display names to be your handle. So if you have a new, like I may not recognize you. I guess that's the thing. So thank you for telling me who you are in the chat. I appreciate that. And welcome, Karen. It's nice to see you here again. And thanks for joining me from the other side of the world. Again, it's such an honor to be able to connect with people and in that regard and just see us as citizens of this beautiful planet together. Devin says, recently did a relaunch of my website and YouTube, started a Patreon. That's why my name changed. Nice. Excellent. Well, Devin, maybe we should talk because I might need to do the same soon. There's been some changes in our situation and our life over here that may necessitate some of that. So if you have any ideas, send them my way. I know I've been kind of flirting with that for many years, but it might become more of a priority moving forward. Javier is here. What's up, Javier? Nice to see you. Morena in Spanish is a very different translation. Tell us what... I'm sorry if I've said something weird in Spanish. I'm just, trying to read the comments here. Maybe that's a Mercury and Sagittarius thing. Hello, everyone. Greetings from Ecuador. Nice to see you, Anna. Right. That's awesome. I love that we've got our international friends here. And we've got Tarja stopping in. Tarja stopping in from Finland. What an honor it is today. Just creating this global community. Really appreciate it, friends. Okay, so let's start talking about Mercury retrograde. And before we start with that, the shedding of skin, right? The old forms. I've been talking on the channel a lot about Scorpio 3, right? And this is going to be a place that Mercury is going to retrograde back to during this period of time. And, as astrologers, we try to objectify some of these things. We try to look at them from a 30,000-foot viewpoint, but we're living through this again. And I, together with all of you listening, we're human beings that are subjected to the twists and turns of fate and to the planets. And I recently had a wonderful talk with Melissa LaFara of the Energetic Principles podcast. I highly recommend checking that out in her channel here on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. We did a collaboration. So if you click the collaboration tab on my channel, you can find that talk that we did. It was on the Saturn and Neptune conjunction in Aries. But we talked a lot about the current moment because, recently my beautiful partner, Tanya, some of you know my partner, Tanya Andrews of Third Coast Mojo. But she recently got laid off from her job and is going through a big transition. And I think that we as a family are going through a transition, examining sources of security and how to move forward with all of that. And it was a form that may have outlived its vitality. Obviously it did. And we're going through, and I think a lot of people I've been talking to just in my own personal life and as a astrology teacher and with clients, a lot of people are going through this where a lot of the forms that we came to rely on for stability are starting to get washed away in this grand water trine. And it may be a cleansing kind of experience to clear the decks for what wants to come next, right? For the Saturn and Neptune Aries type of experience that will hopefully lead to independence, lead to a new start, things of that nature. And one of the things I talked about with Mel, and I think this is poignant for what we're going to experience with the Mercury and Jupiter retrogrades, is that it's difficult to rush rebirth. And it's especially important to fully embrace and experience the letting go phase and to mourn it and to feel the feelings and feel the emotions. And I think that's what we're going to be doing with these Mercury and Jupiter retrogrades on some level, is allowing ourselves to really reflect on our past so that we can fully engage with the healing process sometimes that needs to happen as we go forward into our new starts. So I think that that's part of the big picture experience, is the really slowing down to reflect on where we've been so that we can decide where we're going in a way that is well considered. And just like we can't rush new growth, we also can't rush the composting process, right? We would be making a huge mistake if we said, I just want to just completely sever all these ties. I want to just let go. And sometimes that works for people, the cold turkey method. But oftentimes if we do that, it can be such a shock to our system that we end up repeating old patterns. So one of the things that nature teaches us is that things decay over time. Things, we let go of the entropy process, the separation of all the forms and atoms within those forms happens over a period of time, over a season. So we may be in the season right now of letting go. And as we go through that process, we reflect on our past, and that can help us to move forward in a better start. All right. Javier says, oh, these Scorpio decans have been kicking my ass lately. You and me both, Javier. You and me both, friend. Tarya says, oh, what news? Sorry to hear about Tanya. Appreciate that, Tarya. Yeah, we've been going through it. My partner was she's worked as a farmer's market manager for almost a decade. And it was a source of stability for our family. Like, being a professional astrologer has its ups and downs, and she had the stable job in the family. So there's a lot of things on the table, a lot of considerations about how to move forward with all of this. So yeah, it's definitely an emotional time, but it's also kind of potentially opportunities to reflect and to see how we're going to move forward as a family. What's up, KWOW? Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well, my friend. Javier says, oh, my fresh skin is all sensitive. Yeah. And that's the thing too. This is the thing that we've been talking a lot about in our family, is when we're going through that skin shedding process. And remember, it's the year of the snake in Chinese astrology. When you're going through that skin shedding process, a snake's eyes will cloud over. And we're not always able to see where we're going moving forward right away. So it's a lesson in patience. It's a lesson in letting the cycle unfold. Oftentimes when you're faced with a shock or a trauma, a loss of security, a loss of a relationship, a loss of a job, we want to do something about it right away. I know this has been something I've been feeling like, what are we going to do? We got to figure out what we're going to do right now. Because a lot of that comes from fear, anxiety. And sometimes in that moment, you don't know what you are going to do. And you don't need to know what you're going to do quite yet. You have to let more information unfold. You have to wriggle out of that old skin and get some clarity in your vision first. And these retrogrades are going to be a huge part of that, as far as getting clear about what our vision is going to be moving forward. Amir says, that makes me feel better. I'm slow in this hurting growth. Yeah. Again, nature is sometimes has speed associated with it. It has its role, but it unfolds in its own time, on its own path, right? And us as human beings are really, we try to force the currents, force the river, force the timing of things. We think that we can be greater than the natural cycles and forces. And I think that's a huge mistake. I think it's hubris. And we see consequences from trying to do that as a species. And I think when we come back into alignment with biorhythms, right, rather than algorithms, I've been thinking about this. I was reading an article about opting out of artificial intelligence. I'm feeling pretty sour on artificial intelligence right now. A lot of my work that my partner did and is very good at, like marketing, writing, creative things, a lot of those things are being subsumed by artificial intelligence. A lot of people are losing their jobs because of businesses, corporations, organizations just using that artificial intelligence and then cutting costs by cutting the people that used to do those things. So, and there's consequences to that, not just the fact of loss of security for people, but also ramifications, negative ramifications for the earth and the energy and water that it takes to run all of those data centers that provide that information and that service, but also the atrophy of our personal skills, the atrophy of our ability to be patient, our attachment to end results rather than process. And I think there's going to be an entire generation of people that might not understand how to be resilient within a process because they've offloaded that to a machine rather than through their own beautiful intuition and inner knowing. So this is a lot of things to consider. A lot of us are going through this. This is another thing that's really fascinating about this time is we're moving into uncharted territory, right? As far as this is a huge epoch shift for humanity and really asking ourselves a lot of questions of identity, right? This is another really important factor in Mercury and Jupiter retrograde is asking ourselves, who are we? Who do we want to be? What do we want our ethical standard to be? What type of role do we play when the roles that we used to inhabit, the bodies that we inhabited in society are no longer available, right? Are fading away, are being cast aside. Who do we want to become within that new dynamic, that new arrangement in society? And that's not an easy question to answer, especially when we don't exactly know where all of this is heading. So, yeah, a lot to think about. Javier says, you're totally right. I've got a lot of anxiety and fear. Well, we'll have catharsis today around it, potentially. Okay. So let's talk a little bit more about the details. Let's start with Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius. And let's break down the Sagittarius decan that Mercury is going to retrograde through. So again, this Mercury retrograde period is starting on the 9th, which is Sunday as I'm recording this, the 9th of November. Sagittarius 1 is pretty interesting. This is associated with the 8 of Wands, and this card represents speed. And it is something where we're finally experiencing movement. It's a Mercury-ruled face. Austin Coppock calls it the poisoned arrow, right? That poison somewhat comes from an association with a daimon or spirit in this decan from a Hellenistic fragmentary text called 36 Heirs of the Zodiac, and that spirit was Loimos, the god of plagues. So you could think about how quickly a plague can spread, just like how quickly an idea or a belief system can spread. So enthusiasm can spread very quickly. That's the positive side of this decan is if we believe something very strongly, we can share that idea with others. The negative side of it can be we can spread propaganda in the same way. If we have a strongly held belief that is a false belief, it's very easy for that to spread as an idea that can lead people astray. The other thing that's interesting about this decan is it often represents the liberated spirit that comes after the Scorpio 3 composting session, right? The point of time where we've finally gotten rid of the form. We've liberated the spirit from the body that it was inhabited, that was no longer appropriate for it. And now we're trying to find a new mission, a new goal, a new quest, a new vision. So this is another thing that's really important about this Mercury retrograde is we might have to come up with some new ideas about our new vision. We may have to slow down our vision to get some more information too. So questions that you can consider with this decan in particular. Where are your arrows aiming, right? Where do you want to, what target are you aiming for? It's a lot easier to achieve your goals when you know exactly where you're going or what you want to achieve. What do you believe in? I mean, that's a whole other question, right? What your belief is the initiation of your actions. And when we're faced with a changing society, with changing values and changing arrangements, our belief systems sometimes have to shift. I was talking with Melissa on energetic principles. You know, we were debating the use of artificial intelligence. I tend to be a slow adapter of technology for a number of reasons, because I want to see whether it's ethical to use that technology what the repercussions might be, what the fallout might be, what the negative consequences of using it might be. And I know that that's not true for everyone. I know that sometimes people are just excited that there's a new tool to use and want to dive into it. And sometimes our ethics are based on what is or is not possible in that certain situation. And as we're being pushed to do different things and pushed to change in society, our values, our ethics, our belief systems into what are possible may need to shift. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to compromise your integrity to do so. A shifting of a belief might not be like, oh, well, my back's against the wall. I have to use an artificial intelligence to do my work faster, and I don't care if it pollutes. I don't care if it sucks up all the water in a state or or whatever. That's not necessarily the type of question that you have to ask necessarily. The question might be, how do I share who I am becoming? How do I change a belief around what is possible for what I can become? Like, is it possible to do or be more, or to be something different? That could be the part of the belief. It doesn't necessarily have to be just an ethical consideration. It could be a very individual question. A question you can ask yourself, though, with Sagittarius 1 is, when you're pursuing a vision, is it yours or is it someone else's? As somebody who has struggled sometimes with aligning with the society that I was born into, there have been a lot of choices that I've made that have been coming just from my own vision of and my own value system, not the values of somebody else. And while it's painful, it can be painful to feel like you don't fit in. At the end of the day, I think that it is important to be true to ourselves. So when we're being asked to follow a vision, how do we ascertain whether it's our own or someone else's? And you can only really answer that question for yourself by doing deep meditative work, by looking into your past to figure out what motivates you, thinking about becoming a host for someone else's vision. Think about the spirit in this deck in Loimos, the god of plagues. We as human beings or any other living creature can become a host for a virus, right? For something that wants to spread. So are we becoming a vehicle for some kind of viral belief system? Or is this really a goal that we have that is our own? And by doing that examination, you can find out what your specific truth is. Once you understand what your truth is, how do you get other people on board with that? And how do you share your enthusiasm for that idea, right? And then finally, in this deck, it's important to figure out if you've missed any details. With any Mercury retrograde, you have the opportunity to go back and see something that you might have missed and to fix it, right? So this might be an opportunity to go back and fix those details. I was reading a little bit. There was another astrologer. His name is Moses Siergegard, I believe that's his name. We're friends on Facebook. I don't know if I've met him in person, but he was talking about the Vedic idea about a retrograde planet potentially embodying its opposite sign. And I didn't necessarily have the resources to do all the homework I wanted to on that. But that's an interesting concept to me. And if we think about Mercury retrograding in Sagittarius, maybe embodying Gemini qualities, that's fascinating because Mercury is in its exile in Sagittarius. Maybe instead of stating our belief with enthusiasm, we embrace more of the Mercury and Gemini qualities of asking questions, of exploring. It may be an opportunity to explore other viewpoints than our own. It may be an opportunity to see what other people are doing, to see if it's in alignment with what we want to do moving forward. Similar when we're going to talk about Jupiter in Cancer. How do we embrace Jupiter in Capricorn tendencies? How do we become more structured? How do we become, I don't know if the word ruthless is what we want to become, but how do we become a little bit more disciplined about how we create our abundance in our life? So how do we build structures? It might be an opportunity to build structures. Let's see. Javier says, Wands. Interesting how Mercury is starting its retrograde. How many connections to Mars, I believe, till next spring. I like it. Yeah, there's going to be a pretty big Mars-Mercury conjunction that's going to be a turning point in this retrograde cycle. Okay, wow says, this Mercury retrograde is a part of my Mercury return this year. Thanks for great food for thought. Thank you, friend. Appreciate you. This is what we try to do here on this channel, is ask the right questions, or maybe just ask questions that get you thinking in a new direction. I'm not someone who is quick to state what I perceive as a capital T truth, because I think those things can change. And that's why I like kind of maybe sparking discussion and questions along the way. All right, let's keep moving today. So Mercury retrograde, it's going to be also out of bounds, malefic enclosure and Cazimi. Interesting thing about this Mercury retrograde is its host is Jupiter, right? It starts off with a Jupiter host. So this Jupiter planet is going to be hosting and stationing retrograde in and of itself. So these two things are very much related to one another. So let's shift gears and start talking a little bit about Jupiter in Cancer 3. Okay. So what is Jupiter trying to achieve versus Mercury? Well, first of all, we have to kind of define what these two planets' missions are. And they are very different. In some schemata, or in some organizations of knowledge, they are opposites. Mercury is a planet that destabilizes. It casts doubt, according to the traditional astrologers. It asks questions. It throws things into question. It says, I thought I was sure about this, but now I'm not. Like, this new information I got says, well, maybe I'm not so sure about this. I knew I was going in a certain direction, and then this curveball came, and now what? Jupiter is a little bit different. Jupiter is a planet that wants to move towards order, move towards wholeness, move towards a goal. It is associated with the beliefs that we have, even if we can't see something physically. Like, how do we have faith in the world? How do we move towards something and cast away doubt? So it's interesting, the paradox between the two, and especially with one in the other sign. So what does it mean to be in Cancer, and especially the third decan of Cancer? So Jupiter has a dignity in Cancer called exaltation. So a planet that's exalted means that it's an honored guest in the home that it's visiting. And Jupiter visiting the home of the moon is an exalted guest. It's saying, you are welcome here. We have everything you need. This is everything that you need to achieve your goals. In Jupiter's case, it can be collecting all of the different disparate elements to achieve order, to achieve peace, to expand, and to beget things into form and into life. Jupiter, aka Zeus in myth, was something that was able to give birth, or to create life, I guess in his case, in so many different forms. Traditional astrologers would think of Saturn as the blueprint that Jupiter or Zeus would be drawing upon to beget things into multiplicity of form. So if you think about Saturn as the realm of Platonic ideals, like the idea of a horse, the ideal horse, and then we have Jupiter able to create the polka dot horse, the palomino, the brown horse, the black horse, the white horse, the tall one, the skinny one, the short one, like all of these different forms is Jupiter's realm. Now in Cancer, Jupiter is in a fertile sign. So the fertility element that Jupiter enjoys here is really important. And when we get to this third decan of Cancer, we are in a moon-ruled face, right? Not only are we in the sign of the moon, but we're in the face of the moon. It's very lunar. The tarot card associated with it is the Four of Cups. And here we see a figure that has 3 cups, already satisfied the physical desires of those 3 cups, and is refusing the 4th cup from the divine, potentially. Book of Thoth calls this the Lord of Luxury. Book T calls it the Lord of Blended Pleasure. And Austin Coppock calls it the Overflowing Cup in his book, 36 Faces. So it's like we've had enough. we have enough, we have our physical desires satiated, and sometimes when that happens, we've had enough, and if we have any more, we might start to get sick, right? We might, if we've had enough Halloween candy, for just reference from the most recent holiday, if we can have a couple Reese's, right? Reese's peanut butter cups. But if we have like 15 of them, we might not feel very well, even though the first few were very enjoyable. So how do we deal with the discipline necessary to not go into excess? How do we deal when we have more than we need? Instead of eating 15 peanut butter cups, maybe you should give a couple to your neighbors, right? Maybe you should share them with your family or your kids instead of hoarding them, right? And you make someone else happy because they can eat 1 or 2 peanut butter cups and get the same good feeling that you got from the first 2, rather than the diminishing returns and then sickness of eating 15 of them. Now, this is a very thinly veiled metaphor for how we distribute resources within our society as well. Like, there is all sorts of themes going on right now about people who are hoarding resources and people who are in dire need of them, right? And how do we ask ourselves the right questions about how do we distribute these resources to the people that need them? How do we hold accountable the people that are hoarding them? These are social questions that are probably going to be coming up as Jupiter retrogrades in Cancer 3, right? What do we do with excess? How do we fill scarcities? We are going through a period of time where in the United States, the SNAP benefits, the food benefits that keep people that are on the brink of society, like the brink of starvation, I guess you could say, of hunger, that keep them fed, right? And a really important resource to be able to alleviate scarcity. And those benefits have been withheld. And in sort of what is the word I'm looking for? They are being withheld in sort of being held hostage so that the government can potentially take away your health insurance. So it's like this weird, like, we're going to withhold food benefits so that we can be allowed to take away your health insurance. And those questions that's a no-win situation. In a Jupiter retrograde period, we might be starting to ask some real questions about, like, why are people allowed to do any of those things? Why are people allowed to take away food or health insurance or whatever healthcare, whatever people need as a fundamental need for physical security? You see how we think in Cancer, we think about our physical needs. We think about food. We think about our homes, nurturing, the things we need to feel supported and nurtured. And there may be some review of how we go about doing that as individuals and also as a society moving forward with Jupiter retrograding in Cancer 3. Now, the decanic gift of having a benefic planet here is that Jupiter will hopefully allow us to increase our abundance without it hurting somebody else. That's the gift here. Like, if you had a malefic planet like Saturn or Mars in this decan, you may have either benefited at someone else's expense or someone else benefited at your expense. And that could be something that could be very painful. A victory or an abundant situation for one person means a situation of lack for somebody else. When the benefic planets are here, though, that isn't necessarily the case. This is more of indicative of win-win situations. Now, if we take our idea about the opposite sign sort of being activated in Jyotisha or Vedic astrology, and we look at Jupiter in Capricorn, instead of being in its exaltation, Jupiter would be in its fall. And this is a difficult place for Jupiter. Think about the height of summer in Cancer, where everything is fertile, everything is starting to grow into fullness, and there's enough food for everyone to go around, which is a good signification for this. But think about Capricorn season in the Northern Hemisphere. It's the doldrums of winter. Like, food is scarce. It's difficult to get what we need, right? We want to expand, but the conditions are really tough. And instead of going through a period of ease, we may have to go through a period of restriction. And with Jupiter retrograde in Cancer 3, it may feel like we're going through a period of restriction. Now, I don't know how all of these, the government shutdown, the benefit programs are going to resolve, but we've already seen people that have struggled getting the resources that they need. And that could possibly continue with the retrograde cycle here. I'm going to check in with our chat here. Let's see. I'm just reading through some of the awesome comments. All right. Jody's here. What's up, Jody? Says, hi, Spencer and friends. Tuning in from work, so can't chat much. Happy Friday. Appreciate you, Jody. Thank you for hanging out here today, friend. Jody and I have been having a lot of good conversations about artificial intelligence and moving forward with that. She has a lot of really interesting reflections on that. And we've been trying to support each other through some of the fears that have come up. Like, I don't think anybody's job is necessarily safe with this, especially even us as astrologers, with people typing in things into their AI astrology app. And, you know, I would say support your human your human astrologers if you can. Like, it's kind of scary out there, like being replaced by machines and trying to figure out if what we do as professionals is going to be sustainable over time. So yeah, I enjoy those conversations with you, Jody. Javier says, my daughter would totally eat 15 peanut butter cups. She said no to sharing. Well, Javier, you've got some work cut out for you as a parent, right? That's what we have to do is guide them in the direction of being a functional citizen that shares with one another rather than becomes a hoarder, right? And not easy to do. As children, we are very instinctual. We want to get our instinctual needs met. And I don't blame her, because a peanut butter cup tastes good. And we don't necessarily feel the sickness right away. Sometimes we have to let the sugar go through our body and crash out and feel nauseous. And then we over time and experience, we connect that action with that negative feeling. And that's not always easy to do. That takes sort of doing it a couple times to really learn that. And it takes a lot of discipline that isn't always easy when we're younger, to say, no, I need to delay gratification. There is more to life than just peanut butter cups, right? There's more than just satiating a physical desire. There are spiritual goals that we're trying to meet. And that can talk about the transition from Cancer 3 to the beginning of Leo, is saying, what brings us meaning in life that is outside of just getting our physical needs met? And that's a question that astrology likes to answer or try to explore, I would say, in a lot of ways. Yeah, let's see. Javier says, I wish my Jupiter was in Cancer and not Gemini. Well, we all have positives and negatives in our chart. We all do, I sometimes wish my Jupiter was somewhere like that too, instead of Virgo, but this is who I am, and this is what I was sent to this planet and for whatever reason to do. And this is the same thing with you, Javier. It's there for a reason. I think that there is order to this universe. And I think that there are ways to utilize any chart position in the chart towards benefiting not only your own life, but others as well. Oh, thanks, friend. Javier says, nobody and nothing can replace you, Spencer. Appreciate that. Appreciate you, friend. Okay, so let's keep going. Now, I did talk about the host as Jupiter's stationing retrograde with the moon in Leo. I wouldn't get so attached to the host of Jupiter in this case, though, because of the simple fact that the moon moves very quickly. I think we can look at where the moon is when Jupiter is stationing retrograde. In this case, it's at 13 degrees of Leo. So Leo 2, Leo, the second decan of Leo, where 13 degrees is, asks us about our authenticity, about our identity, about how do we stay true to ourselves to create victory. So I think that is sort of informative, that we may have to ask questions about what is our authentic self? What are we trying to achieve in society, but that is also a reflection of who we really are in the inside. To me, authenticity is matching your inner light, your inner wisdom with your outer expression. And it's not easy to do. And it becomes harder and harder as we're forced into roles that we may be more and more uncomfortable with because we might feel like we need to survive, right? A lot of people change their ideals when they're faced with a survival situation. Right? It's, when your back's against the wall, there's things that you realize might be naive, and you realize might be, I don't know, more of a child's dream rather than an adult one. And it's important to stay connected with the dreams of a child. I think that there's some purity to that. But as we mature, we understand what is or is not possible, and we start to find the right balance between those childlike dreams and the ones that we can achieve into our maturity. Okay. So I'm going to take this down for a minute and just check in with all of you. Stellar Rendition says, my partner has Jupiter in Capricorn and tries to give food like protein bars and such to homeless people at intersections and gets denied. Poor Jupiter in Capricorn. Well, I think that's a nice impulse. I think that's a good, compassionate, empathetic impulse. And I don't think that that's necessarily a bad thing to do. And that may be just that individual. There might be some people that are really accepting of those things. So, and I think that there's all sorts of different ways to give people things. You can give them protein bars, you can give them money, you can give them whatever, sometimes you can just spend time with people. I know that I felt a special affinity for unhoused folks. And, back when I was a little bit younger, I walked around downtown Ann Arbor a lot, and there's some unhoused people that I was like, let me spend some time with this person. I was walking around town with them for a little bit, just being like, tell me your story. How did you get here? And it turned into a really good song about, a Vietnam War veteran, which this person was, and their story and how they may have gone and gotten to where they were at, the Wheel of Fortune. I have a number of songs about those topics. And it's just fascinating to see how one event in someone's life can lead to the complete washing away of what we consider security and structure. And I don't know if any of us are completely immune to that. And you'd be surprised at not only how intelligent just the person on the street corner might be, but just how one event that was no fault of their own led to a cycle of events that could take away what we consider security. So just be very grateful if you have stability in your life, and try not to make judgments about people who may be on the different point of that wheel of life, because it very easily could be any of us at any moment. Okay. So let me start giving you some timelines. So I'm going to bring the chart up. I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. And I'm going to start, I want to start with the shadow periods. So let's start here. Jupiter entered its shadow period. For those of you who are unfamiliar with a shadow period is when a planet enters the space that it will retrograde back to. So the first stop in our narrative unfolding is Jupiter entering its retrograde shadow at 15 degrees of Cancer. So this happened on August the 17th of 2025. So a really informative way to do astrology is to go back and look at the events that were happening in your life. I happen to keep a journal every single day, so I can go back and look at exactly what was happening in my life and what I was thinking and feeling and what was going on with people around me as well. This just so happens to be exactly where my natal sun is. So it's interesting to me to be like, oh, well, this was a place when Jupiter was conjoining my sun, and this is where it will retrograde back to. So This might be an important one for those of us who have planets in the second 10-degree section of Cancer. But think about what was going on at that time, because we're going to be revisiting those topics. Now, second 10-degree section of Cancer talks a little bit more about community, about creating a safe space, the walled garden, about being able to share your abundance with the people around you, with communicating with people, finding the way to create healthy boundaries so that we can grow to our full potential. So that might be themes that we may have to revisit with Jupiter, is how do we create healthy boundaries? How do we create safe spaces so that we can grow into who we are meant to be, and so that we can grow into the new form that we're going to be not asked to be, but almost bound to be, with Saturn in Aries and Neptune in Aries, right? Because Neptune's going to dissolve some of those old structures that we were attached to. And Saturn is going to say, okay, you don't have a choice. You have to do something new. You have to be bound to this new identity. And right now, again, just to review, we're in that dissolving stage. We're in the Saturn in Pisces, Neptune, Pisces. We're in the castles are being washed out to sea. For those of you who follow on Instagram, I always choose a song to represent some of the energies. And for the Saturn and Neptune talk that I did with Melissa LaFara, go check her out on Energetic Principles. I chose Jimi Hendrix, Castles Made of Sand. So castles made of sand, washed into the sea. Eventually, it might be fall into the sea. I might have butchered that lyric, but the point remains. We think that our pillars of security are built on these strong, Roman arch type of pillars that are going to last into eternity. But oftentimes we are building our lives on castles of sand, and that makes us vulnerable to a wave of the ocean, a great natural force that can wash it all away in one moment. Okay, so go back to mid-August, consider what you were experiencing there, and we will be revisiting those themes. Now, Mercury entered its retrograde shadow at 20 degrees of Scorpio on the 21st of October. So that's a little bit more recent, and that is the decan associated with potentially glamorizing, right? Glamorizing the old form, and we have to be careful about getting too attached to that. We have choices that we have to make. We might be falling victim to illusions around that decan. But it's the final decan of Scorpio that says, you know what? You can't glamorize this. It's over. The moment is done. The time is done. The Kairos moment has passed. You can't catch the cherub Kairos because the lock of hair is only on the front. Even Zeus himself couldn't catch Kairos from behind. So the more we try to grasp for the form that has already passed its prime, the more and more evil can be done through that. The more debauchery, the more illusion that we are lying to ourselves about, right? So yeah, it's interesting to see there. Let's see. Devin says, this is when I became a registered priest for the Universal Church. My MC is also at 15 Cancer. Interesting. So that maybe there will be opportunities for you, Devin, to utilize that new role, right? And to see what does that really mean for you? What does that mean for you out in the world? What does that mean for you and in your expansion, in your how you show up for the world and what you're known for? So yeah, you'll keep us updated as to what's going on with that, because that's a really good experiential way of utilizing this astrology. Javier says, when doing backtracking, the look back is always full of hilarity. I mean, it's good if you can laugh at yourself, right? It's good if you can find humor in some of the changes that we have. KWOW says, you always have the best lyric references. I appreciate it. I just am a huge fan of music, and I have a really wide variety of tastes. So music is the ultimate symbolic energy that helps us to express emotions that are difficult to express with just words. So I really connect with that, and I put a lot of thought into it. Like what I do social media posting, I really try to think about how is this going to affect people on an emotional level, not just an intellectual one. Yeah, and maybe I should incorporate more music into the show here. Yeah, because Javier says I always love when Spencer sings. I need to sing more. I think that might be part of my I don't know, looking back towards an old identity and incorporating that wisdom into what we're doing now. So Mercury entering that retrograde shadow, that's where Mercury is going to retrograde back to when it stations direct. So keep that in mind, that we will be revisiting that part, okay? So let's start moving forward here. So the actual Mercury retrograde station, you can see here in the chart, is going to be at 6 degrees of Sagittarius, okay? And this happens on Sunday, November the 9th, this upcoming Sunday. So it is still, Mercury is still in its malefic enclosure. It is still out of bounds. It's going to be stationing retrograde in that decan that we talked about that's related to speed, that's related to motion, forward movement. We want to rush. We want to take action. You know, maybe we've lost something in our lives. Maybe we are eager to engage in the next chapter, but there is a review process. There is a slow process. You know, in our case, like my partner, you know, she's been laid off from her job, but she still has to go work at her job for another 6 weeks. It wasn't an immediate layoff. It was like it was a budget cut. So they were like, oh, well, here's when the fiscal year ends. We'd like you to stay on for this period of time. And that's that causes a slowdown. That causes like a feeling of maybe even being a little bit stuck in a situation before you can move forward. And a lot of us might be feeling that in our lives. We may be wanting to move into the next identity, and we want to go quickly. We don't like the ambiguity. Like the ambiguity of Mercury can be very uncomfortable. The uncertainty that comes with that. And we might want to resolve it right away. But the Mercury retrograde station here says, no, slow down. I mean, I literally put a snail in the thumbnail of this video, which I think represents the reversal, you know, with like the cycling of the planet in different directions, but also just the need to slow down. So this is our slowdown moment. Now, when we get to the 10th, all right, when we get to the 10th, we're going to see Mercury back in bounds. So we may be starting to communicate in a way that is a little bit less spicy, maybe a little bit less outside the norm. Mercury, our thoughts might be more in alignment with how they've always been rather than outside the box. And that can, for better or for worse. But I think that might lead to more ease of exchange or more normality with exchange, I guess you could say. I don't know about ease because Mercury stationing retrograde slows things down. The delivery of things between spaces can slow way down during this. And that can be really frustrating. So give yourself extra space, especially if you're doing commerce or business. Give yourself extra lead time. If you've ordered something, expect delays potentially. I sort of was thinking about this week because and I'm not sponsored by this company, but I really love the work that they do. The honeycomb planners, right? If you're not familiar with that, check them out. They're these beautiful planners that I use, and they're specific to your natal chart, and they have all the aspects here, and they show you kind of the monthly. I have a monthly calendar that I use too. Just amazing, beautiful work, and I usually order them at the beginning of December for the next year. But I thought, I was like, you know what? I sort of need this information now. And I was a little bit nervous because I was like, oh, Mercury's about to station retrograde. But if you can get things in before it happens, you could do that. And sometimes we just have to live our lives. Sometimes when Mercury's retrograde, we can't just stop doing all of the exchanges. We just may have to be flexible with some of the timing around it. Life doesn't stop for 3.5 weeks or however long that retrograde period is. We still have to do some of these exchanges. Javier is asking, will the sun going into Scorpio around that day affect Mercury back in bounds? Well, sun's already in Scorpio, friend. I guess I'm just a little confused at the question. Yeah, we've been in Scorpio sun season since what, I don't know, the 23rd of October. But maybe you're asking if Mercury, I don't know, maybe you can clarify in the chat. I always like to ask clarifying questions if I'm confused. So let me know what you're thinking there. Let's move forward here. Now we get to the 11th. That's when we have our Jupiter retrograde. Okay. So here's Jupiter at 25 degrees of Cancer, stationing retrograde. I believe it's pretty close to a fixed star called Procyon. Okay, Procyon. And Procyon is associated with raccoons. And I thought that was really fascinating, especially because right after I learned the news about the change in our family's situation, I went for a walk. I just went for a walk by myself, kind of just clear my head, think some thoughts, reflect a little bit. And in the middle of broad daylight, in the middle of our very populated neighborhood, I came across a raccoon, and it was very sick. I think it had mange or potentially rabies. I didn't get too close, but it was like limping, and it was very ill. And I thought that was a fascinating reflection on the Procyon Jupiter energy, and especially with the upcoming retrograde. Raccoons often represent generous protectors and providers. They provide for the rest of the troop before they take food for themselves. And it just brought up a lot of thoughts about reflecting on the raccoon energy in our lives. So think about Procyon. Procyon also, I believe Procyon means before the dog, which it precedes Sirius on some level. So it's talking about like a time before a return of abundance to the river, the Nile River Valley in ancient Egyptian culture. But it can also reflect something that is like a firework, something that burns out very quickly. It's like an explosion of color, and then it burns out very quickly. So just fascinating to think about the Procyon elements within this. Yeah, and I'm gonna bring up the Decans of Cancer and just think about that for a minute too, to see if there's anything I was missing with that. Because I think that when we think about, where is it here? One moment. Thank you for your patience. While I'm looking for this, do me a huge favor, friends. If you could hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, that would be very helpful for me. So here we go. Procyon. I think I'm going to share this in a minute here. So Procyon is in the constellation Canis Minor, the little dog. Before the dog, it precedes Sirius. Short-lived glory are some of the themes that I wrote down in my Decans of Cancer webinar slides here. Temporary success, fads or fickleness, sudden changes of fortune. And isn't that interesting that we're talking about releasing old forms potentially? Uh-oh, where did all that go? There we go. Releasing old forms when we're talking about Jupiter on Procyon, right? The ability to move something, release an old identity, an old belief, and that can lead to a change in fortune, sometimes for better, sometimes for worse. So having to make those adjustments, I think, is going to be important with Jupiter's station retrograde at 25 degrees of Cancer. Okay. Jody says, seeing a raccoon during this isn't good. During the day isn't good. Definitely a sick little creature. Yeah, he looked very ill. He was, his fur was all messed up. He didn't look good. I tried not to get too close to him. He kind of ran off into a little private area, but it was, yeah, it was sort of a reflective of some of my emotions at the time of a little bit of worry about security, a little bit of worry about, beneficial situations. So we often are given different signs by the universe. Sometimes they come through astrology, sometimes they come through nature. And really pay attention when an animal acts out of character like that. It is revealing itself to you. Sometimes even if you see something deceased on the side of the road. That is a symbol as well. So maybe it was a symbol to uh, reevaluate how we support ourselves and each other. Maybe there's roles that need to shift. Maybe there's something, I'm reflecting on what I can do individually to support my partner rather than just be supported. Like she's an amazingly, she's such a hard worker and a self-sacrificer. And a lot of the work that I've been able to do in astrology and a lot of the way that I've set up my business model has been because of her support. And how does that need to change moving forward while still staying true to my values, while still staying true to the desire to make this information available to the most amount of people possible? Those are questions that are coming up during this. And I think Raccoon reflects that. And it may be reflecting that for many of you as well, like with the Procyon energy. There may be something that is offered to you with a Jupiter stationing retrograde on Procyon where it may be short-lived. Maybe it's a temporary solution. Maybe it's something that is preceding something bigger, right? So it's always fascinating to see where these planets are retrograding and the fixed stars that are associated with that as well. In Canada, you can see them during the day. The animals got free range here. Scraggly little guy. Yeah, he was definitely a scraggly little guy. Javier says, I've been seeing my homeless friend a lot this week. He always sits across the street at the supermarket. Yeah, I mean, this is something to just, it's a reflection of, I think, understanding and having empathy for someone else's situation, realizing that the gulf between our more stable situations and their less stable situations is always tenuous, and not taking anything for granted. I think that's extremely important as we move forward. Is it's very easy to be in that situation, and also how do we help? How do we help them? This is another theme of Jupiter in Cancer 3. How do we take our abundance and use it to help someone who might be on that different part of the Wheel of Fortune? Because we never know when we may be the one in need of receiving. And that doesn't mean that we give so that we can receive. It's not a tit for tat type of thing. It's just understanding that we all could be that person, and to not see them as different than us. This is part of the illusion of being incarnated into these bodies. We have this illusion of separateness, and a lot of spiritual traditions teach that we are one, right? And I think understanding what you do for someone else, you are trying to do for yourself and for others as well, is a really important kind of meditation and spiritual practice. Leanne says, Jupiter will be stationing retrograde on my IC. Ooh, that's an interesting placement. So the IC is the lower midheaven that represents your roots, represents your family. If it's in the 4th house, because I do whole sign houses, sometimes it's in a different house, the 3rd or the 5th usually. It can represent, something, a potential expansion in your family up for review. Maybe you are thinking about renovating a room or something of that nature. Maybe there's something where you're revisiting your roots, revisiting a family member, revisiting a memory, revisiting an old identity, trying to see what your values are around that. So that's a really powerful placement for that, and should be something that will be very instructive. Amir says, really good guy. He always gives my daughter and I food and clothing. Oh, that's nice. See, I mean, and there's so many ways that we can help each other out, even if we have very little. That doesn't mean that we can't help one another. I think that's the scale is something the universe is not as concerned about as we are as human beings. And even those small acts of kindness and the act of receiving can be something that can give people, I think that can give people a good feeling. Being able to allow someone to give something to you can allow someone some dignity that they may not be allowed otherwise. So I love that reciprocity and that exchange. Mare is here. What's up, Mare? Nice to see you. Hope you're doing well. Joining us from Maine. Mare's always got beautiful pet portraiture in her profile picture here. So if you need a beautiful portrait of your pet, reach out to Mare, Paintings by Mare. Love it. Okay. Let's see. Um, Merunik is here. Oh, nice to see you, friend. Um, I'm considering going back home from Germany back to Argentina. Tell me your first name again, Meronique. Yeah, Mariana. Yeah, Mariana. That's right. Okay, thank you. Because screen names have changed, and yeah, I remember you. Germany from Argentina. Got that. Considering going back home from Germany back to Argentina, I've noticed so many hard obstacles. I have Venus and Mars conjunct in Cancer, right? Yeah, so a return back to roots. Think about like we have Leanne with this stationing on her IC, a literal return to the roots in the chart. But Cancer in general, even if that's not our lower midheaven or our fourth house, could be returning to our roots, returning to something that is from our youth or from our past, returning to a homeland or something of that nature. Very Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, in my opinion. Javier says, yeah, yes, the subject of community. I've been thinking about Jupiter and all, and how if we are not connected in community, that doesn't feel as safe. I agree 100%. I think that's one of the ways that we overcome abusive authoritarianism, and is by connecting in our local communities and supporting each other and having each other's backs. I think that's a super important issue as we move forward. All right, let's take a little stretch break here. I need to stretch my legs out. Take a little drink of water, get a snack for a minute. Do me a huge favor as you do so. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, move your hips a little bit. Let's move those hips, let's shake them, right? I'm gonna move my hips. Shake it out. I'm shaking it. Sorry, you can't see me, but I'm shaking. Doing a little dance. Get my shoulders all loose. Sitting too long is the new smoking, right? Like we don't want to sit too long. We want to make sure that we're flexible so that our brains work well. All right. In addition to liking the video and subscribing, make sure that notification bell is on so you know when we're going live. We don't always go live at exactly the same time, and you don't want to miss out because we have a great community here, and it's always nice connecting with all of you. Okay, let's go back. We've got some ground to cover here. Got some ground to cover. Let's see, where was I? Where was I? We were at Jupiter stationing retrograde. Let's go forward another day. And we've got Mars conjoining the Mercury retrograde. So you could see on the chart, now we have Mercury and Mars coming together on November 12th, which is Wednesday. Now, this is important in the cycle because it is the end of the Mercury malefic enclosure. So once Mars conjoins Mercury, it will be on the other side of Mercury, and Saturn here will be casting its ray on one side of Mercury, and Mars won't be enclosing it. So we still have the co-presence of Mars and Mercury, but it won't feel maybe as restrictive because we're not backed into a corner. So an important conversation, an important severing potentially, a conversation or a communication that will help us to understand what we need to let go of, that will release some of the pressure, what will release us from that feeling of like, oh, we're just stuck in this difficult situation. What do we need to do to move forward? You know, I think that that's a probably an important moment. Now, what I will say about this Mars-Mercury retrograde conjunction, I think that when we're going through changes and when we're in situations that feel uncomfortable, that can lead to a lot of frustration. And I'm going to guess that this malefic enclosure of Mercury has felt like, because I've been witnessing it in a lot of different situations, like a simmering pot or a pressure cooker where you really want to express either your anger, your belief system, your disappointment, your fears, but there's something that's holding you back where you kind of have to maintain your integrity in a difficult situation. And what I would suggest, especially on this day, November the 12th, the end of the malefic enclosure of Mercury, where Mars and Mercury come together, be very careful about just unleashing all of that pressure onto whoever you may be interacting with, especially if we've been repressing it for quite some time. That can lead to some negative consequences. And maybe there is an air clearing conversation And that can be healthy, but I guess I would choose your outlet for that wisely. There's so many ways to release the pressure that we feel, the repression of, especially in situations where it might be dangerous to express ourselves. There's so many different ways to connect and to hit that steam valve. Some of it can be through talking with a friend. It can be through talking with a therapist. It can be through journaling. It can be through exercise. All of those things can be releases for this that don't necessarily destroy the situations that you're in. So keep that in mind, because our words are probably going to be a little bit spicier around this period of time, even though Mercury is going to be released from that malefic enclosure. Yeah. Says, oh, thank God, I'm under so much stress. The lid off the pot, finally. There you go, right? Yeah, just, I guess, don't burn yourself when you lift the lid up. Like, remember how you know how the steam escapes? Like, it's very easy to sustain a burn wound in that situation. So when we're letting off steam, we have to do it, and we have to be very careful about how we do that so that we don't hurt ourselves, right? Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the same day that that's happening, we have a last quarter moon that's perfecting. And that last quarter moon is going to be at about 20 degrees of Leo, squaring the 20-degree Scorpio sun. Now, this chart doesn't completely reflect it because the moon is slightly more forward, but keep in mind that this is going to be the shifting moment. Last quarter moons are existential crises. They're the time where we say, you know what? I'm changing my mind on this. I can't sustain this old energy. I've got to release something. The moon is releasing its light. And in this case, there's a tension that comes with it. It's a square. So what are these two decans trying to do around this Mars-Mercury conjunction last quarter moon? Well, the sun's goal is composting the old form in Scorpio 3. And remember, the sun is at the degree that Mercury will retrograde back to, the shadow degree, right? So an important degree, 20 degrees of Scorpio, is activated really powerfully in the months ahead. But the moon in Leo 3. Leo 3 represents that Seven of Wands energy, where we see someone on a hill defending their position, defending their power, defending their belief systems. Your friendly neighborhood astrologer here has the ascendant at 21 degrees Leo. And what I've learned about that placement is there are a lot of situations in life where we feel we need to defend our integrity, defend our authenticity. Some of those situations we're successful in doing so. Other situations we need to step down off of a defensive position and know when to leave a situation. And from what I have gathered from reading a lot of both Susie Chang and Austin Kopek's material on the decans, it seems to me that in Austin's book, a lot of the Decanic literature he talks about is potentially increasing the quality of the moon in a certain decan when the moon is waxing, and then decreasing that quality when the moon is waning. So to be able to move forward with the solar mission of composting and releasing the old form, we may have to let go of such a strong identification with defending the old identity, defending the old position of power, stepping down from the throne or whatever that throne might look like. I know this has been really hard for me in the past, and I know it's really hard for people that I've witnessed who have similar placements. The current president of the United States has a similar placement, and they have had a lot of difficulty stepping down from positions of power when it was necessary to do so. So there may be a situation in our life where, to move forward with this renewal process, we have to let go of an identification that we took a lot of pride in, right? When I was transitioning into being a professional astrologer, I had a lot of identification with being a teacher, a music teacher, and a performing musician. out in the world. Now, the pandemic changed that. COVID changed that a little bit, but I left a teaching job at a community college. I taught songwriting there for an entire Jupiter cycle for like 12 years. And I had a lot of identification with that. I had a lot of pride in that. I enjoyed that work quite a bit. And it was painful to step down off of that throne, that position. Just as I'm witnessing my partner, who identified in a lot of positive ways with being a farmer's market manager, someone who's helping to feed the world. That's something that's an important, as a chef, as a compassionate person. She said she has a lot of identification with that, and stepping away from that identity, maybe even if it's temporarily, might be painful, but might be necessary to figure out that the roles that we play are not always just indicative of who we are as souls, as spirit souls. Our roles can change with the values that motivate them staying intact. And this is something that I really had to realize as I moved from being a community college songwriting teacher to being a YouTuber, a YouTube astrology teacher. The essence of what I was teaching in songwriting is not that different from the essence of the values that I teach through the language of astrology. The form just changed. And I think this is the most important thing to realize at this last quarter moon, is that even though the form might be changing, that doesn't mean that you as an individual are being swept away, or the values that made you who you are. They may have to shift a little bit, but they're shifting into a new form. All right, we've got some comments coming in with this. Let's see. Let's see. I'm just looking through the chat here. Mayor says, thanks for the shout out, Spencer, about my paintings. I'm catching your recordings lately. I love listening while painting. Oh, I love that I'm inspiration for painting and creativity. And I love that you are painting animals. I have some cherished paintings from my partner's mom. Actually does a similar pet portraiture type of thing. And she sent us some portraits of our cherished fur babies. And it's something I love having in our house. So it's a good service that you're doing for people, Mayor. And maybe someday I'll have to have you paint one of our a couple of our fur babies. Maybe Gandalf and Radagast need their portrait done. Like, all right. Kate, see your complicate says, I'm here. Stop yelling at me. Am I yelling at you? Is this the same Kate that is normally in our chat here? You got a new profile picture? Okay. I hope I'm not yelling at you. Maybe you're just resonating with what I'm saying. Like maybe you're just getting a lot of awareness with it. Yeah. All right. Not sure how I feel about this Leo moon. Tamer Taku, yeah, is here. Nice to see you, Taku. Hi, Spencer. Joining your live sessions again. Greeting from Germany. Nice to see you, friend. Hope that you're doing well over there. Mercury will station next week right across my natal Jupiter. Any advice that you can share? Right across my natal Jupiter. Well, I think just a lot of the themes we've been talking about today. So what I would advise, Taku, is once we're done here today, rewind and go watch the first hour and 20 minutes. That will help you with that. But I think, though, Mercury stationing on your Jupiter in Sagittarius. So just slow down. I guess that's the advice I can give you. You might want to move forward really quickly with something in your life, but Mercury is going to ask more questions about what your goal is before you move forward. So that would be the personal advice I'd give you there. All right. Wow, I got a lot of send me photos. Oh, nice, Mayor. Yeah, maybe I will. That'd be fun. Oh, okay. Javier is yelling at her to join the live. Okay, gotcha. Megan is here. What's up, Megan? Nice to see you. Hey, I always watch the replay. Never been here in real life. I'm in London in the UK. Nice. Thanks for joining us here, Megan. I hope everything's going well over there across the pond. And thanks for letting me know that you're here. I always love when new people are stopping in and letting me know that they're catching it live. So appreciate you being here, friend, and give you a shout out here today. Okay, so let's keep going. Let's talk about let's keep unfolding our timeline. Mars will move under the beams of the sun on the 13th. So not necessarily a Mercury, a Mercury Jupiter signification, but I think poignant nonetheless, because once Mercury moves into Scorpio, it's going to be hosted by Mars, and Mars will be under the beams. Mars is going to be getting ready to Cazimi in January. So, like all of the transitions I've been talking about today, all the different changes, all the uncertainty, I have a feeling that there will be some really powerful new starts that come in early January because of not only Mars, but Venus Cazimiing in Capricorn. Mars is going to Cazimi at its exaltation at around second decan of Capricorn. I think it's between 16 and 19 degrees of Capricorn. Those two planets are both going to be renewed in the heart of the sun. But pay attention to what happens on the 13th as far as martial significations go, related to your Scorpio and your Aries houses. Because this is Mars taking to its sickbed. This is Mars getting ready to say, okay, it's time for my old form to die and a new one to be reborn. And we will also be seeing many of these planets going through the bending of the nodes in December. So turning points coming. Now, from the 17th to the 21st, we've talked about this a little bit on previous live streams, but we've got the grand water trine that's going to be perfecting. So you see here, we've got the sun is going to be going into the last degrees of Scorpio and making a trine to Jupiter, the retrograde Jupiter now, and retrograde Saturn and Neptune. So another opportunity for letting go of old forms. This year, the snake is really fascinating. Just as we come to the end of it, that's when we're shedding the skin, right? And we're probably being asked to make these changes in so many different areas of our life. When one area of our life changes, it affects all the other areas of our life. Mercury did it first. Mercury went through this last decan of Scorpio and is retrograding back into it. We had the grand water trine with Mercury. We had a grand water trine with Mars, right? So those old forms are being severed and separated, and now it's the sun's turn. So, of course, the sun in Hellenistic astrology hosts the Leo house in your chart. So the Leo topic in your chart, in this arbitrary Pisces rising chart, Leo is the 6th house. So a change in belief system may lead to a change in either the work that you do or your health, potentially, for a Pisces rising. So going through and seeing how those themes are going to apply towards your sense of identity, your sense of how you put yourself out into the world, how you shine your light, that's going to be some of the themes with this grand water trine. Now, the day after, the 18th, we have Mercury retrograding into Scorpio. Okay, so here is Mercury into Scorpio. We'll just see if we can get it to Scorpio here. Yeah, there it is. So there's Mercury in Scorpio now. Reorientated the chart a little bit. Now there's a Leo rising chart for those Leo risings out there. So a review of the forms that we are letting go of, a review of the illusions that we might be holding on to. I think this is an opportunity for us to say which parts of the story, of the narrative, of the beliefs, of the form are we trying to hang on to that we just can't. Oftentimes when we're going through changes, we try to make half-assed changes. We try to let go of parts of it and hang on to other ones. This might be the opportunity to say, how do we really make a fresh start, a clean break, whatever it needs to be? How do we get the last shed off of the snake, right? Most of it might be gone, but we might have a whole big, flap of skin still on the tail that we've got to shake off, right? And this is the opportunity to do so. It's going to reignite that grand water trine that Mercury is going through, and give us an opportunity to really, really engage with the composting process. All right. That also sets up the next day the Mercury grand water trine that I just talked about. So as we are seeing that happen, leading up to this, not only is Mercury going into that grand water trine, but it's opposing Uranus. So like now we've got Uranus and Taurus. We've got Mercury going into its cazimi and opposing Uranus there. This could be another kind of surprise. I know that when we got our news around the shift in my partner's employment situation, it was during the Mercury-Uranus opposition in Sagittarius and Gemini. And there may be another, hopefully not a bad surprise, but there may be another communication that we weren't completely expecting with Mercury opposing Uranus, this time from Scorpio to Taurus. I think oftentimes with Scorpio opposing Uranus and Taurus 3, with Uranus here, like for the last few years, sometimes it's a weather phenomenon. Sometimes it's something where something has to be repaired or fixed. And so I would keep an eye out for some kind of physical thing that you need to fix or repair. Be very careful if there's a storm around you, if there's a snowstorm or an ice storm. I know we had a lot of damage in my area from an ice storm a few years ago, and I'm praying that doesn't happen again, because a lot of the tree branches were really brittle during that. So it could also be through like a vehicle or something like that. So make sure that you are driving carefully, or that you're getting all of your checkups with your cars and your tech around this period of time. That can help you to sometimes, I think, hopefully avoid some of the most negative outcomes. All right, let's see. Mare says they have Venus in Scorpio 1 in the 11th. Okay, nice. So you're going through the Venus return right now, as Venus is in Scorpio, right? All right. Taku's going to rewatch tomorrow morning while you work out. Nice. Okay. Appreciate you. Let's see here. Oh my God, these water trines. Lots of crying emojis. Yeah. Agree. Let's see here. No. Javier says, I've got Leo in the 8th. Am I going to die? I hope not. I think having transits in the 8th does not always mean a physical death. It can be metaphorical. Maybe a part of you. Maybe a belief system might. Maybe a source of shared resources might. But it's not always indicative of a physical death. Let's see. Yes, good work there, Mayor. All right, so let's move forward. And this brings us to the 20th of November, which is a really important date. And I'm just going to move towards I'm going to just show you oops, hold on a second. There we go. So not only do we have Mercury cazimi on the 20th, the renewal of Mercury in the heart of the sun, but we also have a new moon. So it is doubly powerful. It is a renewal of the moon in the heart of the sun as well. So we're going to see physical manifestations of this Mercury cazimi as well. Right in the space associated with Scorpio 3, right? It's very close. It's close to a fixed star. I'm gonna go back and look at my notes to see which fixed star we're looking at here. I think it's Ptolemy. Yeah, Ptolemy is a fixed star in the constellation Centaurus, the Centaur. And this is the right foot of the Centaur. Ptolemy means hereafter. It's associated with Chiron, the healer, the teacher, the musician. And also the Egyptians associated with Serket, the Scorpio crown, she who causes the throat to breathe or to choke. So Ptolemy can be an unhealable wound. It is a fixed star that is associated with sacrifice, and that sacrifice becomes wisdom. So there may be a painful experience that we go through, or we have to revisit that painful experience that is difficult to heal. But that will be instructive. There will be wisdom that comes out of that. So even though we may carry that the tear that hangs inside our soul forever, as Jeff Buckley would say in Lover, You Should Have Come Over. He's like, she's the tear that hangs inside my soul forever. We learn from that. And it becomes part of our character, and it becomes part of our wisdom moving forward. It becomes part of our love. It becomes part of our pain. It becomes part of our compassion and empathy. I think this is the most important thing and takeaway with this is when we are going through a painful experience and one that is impossible to fully heal, we can utilize that to have compassion for others that are going through something similar. I've often drawn upon some of the painful experiences in my life, not only as an artist and as a musician, but as an astrologer, as a teacher, as someone who can empathize with my clients in real time to say, yes, I've been there. I work a lot with parents who are going through difficult co-parenting situations. I've had a difficult co-parenting situation in my life. And I've gone through people who are going through divorces, who are going through toxic co-parenting situations. And the pain that I felt with that helps me to empathize and to guide them on their journey and to give them strength, I hope. I hope that's what it gives them. I hope by showing that, hey, there is another side to this. You can get out on the other side of it. And it might be difficult while you're going through it, while you're experiencing it. But here, I'm across these rapids. And here's how, here is a path. Here is the stones to step on to get across those rapids. And it may be different. Your path might be slightly different, but at least there's someone pointing the way, right? And I think that's the compassion that comes through some experience like this with the Mercury Cazimi. This is a powerful letting go point. This is really we've been asking a lot of questions about which forms need to decay. Now the decaying process is shifting into overdrive at this new moon in Scorpio 3 with the Cazimi of Mercury. That's also going to lead us into the Venus Grand Water Trine. Okay, so this is the 24th here. Here's now Venus is going through the similar process. So just as powerful changes in our life can affect different areas of our life, now it's going to affect relationships. Now it's going to affect our aesthetics. Now it will affect our desires, what we love, what we appreciate. It will probably also have an effect on our Libra area of our chart and a Taurus area of our chart, which Venus is responsible for. So let yourself let that castle that's made of sand wash back into the sea. There's ways to build new structures from that. As we move forward on the 27th, Mars is going to move out of bounds while Mercury emerges as the morning star. Okay, so here is Mercury emerging from under the beams at about 20 to 21 degrees of Scorpio. And it is not only happening while Mars is moving out of bounds, but Saturn is also stationing direct that day. Okay, so a big day, 27th. Remember we were talking about Mercury out of bounds in the beginning of the channel, beginning of the show. And Mars is now going to be acting out of character. Our anger might be different. Our ability to sever and separate might be out of the norm. We might be willing to let go of something that we wouldn't have been willing to let go of in the past. And that can feel scary, but it also can be very liberating. So Mercury emerging from the beams, powerful messages that we might receive. Mercury generally emerges from the beams right before it stations direct, so you'll see that happening too. But we might understand with Saturn stationing direct, the sacrifices that we might need to make for the new unfolding of our identity moving forward. That brings us to Mercury stationing direct. This isn't happening on the 29th. So here now Mercury is going to be direct here from the 29th through the 30th, and Venus is going to be opposing Uranus. So right as Mercury stations direct, a reversal of mercurial significations, we've got a Venusian shock that's coming, a Venusian shakeup. Just a lot of electricity in these aspects moving forward. And then finally, the end of the Mercury story here is Mercury exiting its retrograde shadow on the 16th of December, okay? So that's when Mercury is now covering new ground, right? When it moves past that 6 degree point that it started retrograding from. So a lot of the letting go process, we might be starting to find our new form. We might be starting to find our new mission around this 16th. We might be starting to actually make some progress towards the direction that we want to go in after the cathartic process of letting go, of crying, of acknowledging, of mourning the old form, of ritualizing that grief, right? Again, this is something I talked about with Mel in the Energetic Principles podcast we just recorded. Is in Western civilization, you've heard me say this on the channel before though, but we don't ritualize our grief. We don't acknowledge the letting go process. We don't acknowledge the fall and the winter of our lives in Western civilization. And if we do so, it's in this twisted way where we say, well, how do we get through this so we can get to the new start right away, you know? And I think that's a mistake. Just as we can't rush growth, we also can't rush a release. So this might be the time after the patience that it takes to go through the mourning, the ritualized mourning process, to start to heal those wounds, to start to find new identity, because we've done the hard work of acknowledging our past. We've done the hard work of going into our intuitive state, into the underworld of our lives, and understanding what truly will make us happy and others happy moving forward. Before we do that, the actions that we take will be half-assed at best, diffused, right? You can't be a good archer without good aim, right? So this retrograde process helps to solidify our aim. It helps us to understand where we're pulling that bow and where we're trying to shoot our arrows towards. If you just shoot your arrows wherever, you're not going to hit that target, and you might actually hit something that you don't want to hit. You might have collateral damage if you're aiming in the wrong direction or aiming wildly. So this is going to be the point where our focus starts to sharpen, where we start to see the direction that we might need to have moving forward, and it'll allow us to take those next steps. Now, the final couple things that we'll have here is Jupiter's stationing of direct motion. So if we go forward in time here, this is going to be March 10th of 2026. So in our Jupiter story, we will, now keep in mind, the outer planets station retrograde for a number of months every year, okay? Mercury stations retrograde 3 times a year for shorter periods of time. 3 to 4 times a year? I think it's 3 times a year. And so this is not a completely uncommon occurrence, but we might start to see a lot of the abundance that we're trying to create start to take root, okay? Like the seeds that we've planted during the reflection period start to take root in early March. And that to me is always fascinating to see when all of these things take place, because we're coming towards a period of renewal in nature as well, the spring equinox. We're near that spring equinox. We're also going to have Mars emerging from the beams right around that spring equinox renewal point. So we move forward here. We're going to see our abundance being able to move forward. Mars is emerging from under the beams around this point. This is around March 20th, okay? And then finally, Jupiter will exit its retrograde shadow on June, sorry, on June the 5th of 2026. So here is when Jupiter exits its retrograde shadow and returns back to the point where it started retrograding, 25 degrees of Cancer. So that's when we start to cover new ground with Jupiter in June of next year. So that gives you a timeline. That gives you an understanding that this is not, this moment that we're in right now, as painful as it might be, is not the end of this story. It's not the end of the narrative. And this is, I think, the greatest gift of astrology, is seeing that we are part of a greater story that's unfolding. And that even if we're in a really difficult time, that's not the end of the story, right? Even if we're in a wonderful time, don't take it for granted. Things might change. Enjoy the moment. It can help us to both appreciate the moment and have the inner fortitude to weather some of the more difficult storms in our life. So that's what I've got for you. I have an animal and an I-Ching, but I'm just going to check in with the chat here first. Let's see what we got going on here. Let's see. I'm just reading through. K-Wow, thank you so much for the super chat, friend. K-Wow says, appreciate you. I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the work that I'm doing here. That, you know, these super chats really do help, and especially in a time when my family's facing a little bit of, I don't know, uncertainty with our material situation. I really do appreciate it, and I know that all of us are going through this on some level with just the zeitgeist right now. So the generosity that you're sharing in what could be a difficult time for everyone is I really do appreciate that. So thank you so much for that, friend. Javier says, I knew my Mercury is going to go through 28 degrees of Taurus, so you're going to get lit up by that Mercury-Uranus opposition, Javier. Okay. Jody says, heading to your website, Mayor. My sister just lost her beloved dog. Oh my goodness, I'd love to get her a painting. Ooh, I love seeing this. I love this cross-pollination in the community. So yes, Jody, let's get that painting to memorialize your sister's beloved pet. And right, that's the ritualized mourning that we're talking about, right? Letting go of a form that just isn't vital anymore. And what I will offer, Jody, to your sister, when I went through that with my beloved cat, I had a cat named Kitty Bear, and she had kidney disease. And I kept her alive for almost a year after her diagnosis. She was really deteriorating, but I gave her intravenous fluids for a long time. And eventually, and what I learned from that is I was trying to keep her body alive. I was trying to keep her form alive past the time that really it was meant to. And I had to learn that sometimes we have to let go. And the lesson through that, though, is that I won't be able to replace her and her individual soul and spirit. But the love that I could give to a beloved, cherished fur baby, animal, pet can find new form. And it did. Not too long after my beautiful kitty bear passed away, I came into contact with my lovely new fur babies, Gandalf and Radagast. And that doesn't mean that I forget about Kitty Bear. I have a beautiful portrait of her that my partner's mother painted. But I know that my love is what is internal. And the love that I receive, the reciprocal love that we exchange with our beloved pets, that is what is eternal, and that can find new form. And I hope that your sister, once she's gone through the mourning process, will be able to find love again with a new cherished pet. Corey's here. What's up, Corey? Long time no see. Closing down the nursery for the season today. Hope you're well and getting ready for some snow tomorrow. Yeah, I got to get ready for some snow. Nice to see you, Corey. Hope everything's going well with you over there in snowy Iowa, right? I think that's where you're joining us from. Let's see. Javier says, yes, people always want to rush the healing process. Very annoying. Yeah, important not to do that. Important to honor the process, just like we honor the cycles of nature, right? Jody says, glad that the Jupiter retrogrades while still in Cancer. Yeah, it could be that smooths the process out, potentially. Let's see here. Let's see. Kate says, Jody, it makes me recall the lyrics. It comes in waves. God, now I need to find the song. Songs are so powerful, aren't they? Let's see. Corey says, to be honest, I'm jealous of Canadians. I would love to visit Toronto someday. You guys get lake effect snow to deal with. Oh my goodness, you guys are good. Yeah, connect. Make those connections. Maybe we'll have a Spencer Michaud Astrology, I don't know, Canadian meetup. I don't know if that exists. We'll see. Okay. Corey says, adopted a stray kitty who was hanging around the greenhouse earlier this week. My 2 resident ladies aren't having it. Been resourcing lots of YouTube videos about help with integration. Ooh, yes, that's always a difficult transition. I would say giving them their own space and letting them get to smell each other over time is important, but they'll get over it. Javier says, Kitty Bear, that name always makes me smile. Yeah, she was a special soul, and I miss her a lot. But yeah, the love that I felt for her found a new form, a new outlet, and it has been returned back to me twofold. I always say that Kitty Bear, my relationship with Kitty Bear and the love I felt for her could not be replaced with one pet. I had to get two to replace her. So she was a special soul. All right, friends, let's wrap up for the day. What do you say? So I'm going to bring the, let's see here. Caviar's, it says, come visit anytime, all of you lovely folks. 2.5 hours north of Toronto. Nice. Okay, I'm going to bring the hexagram up to the screen. So here is the hexagram for our Mercury and Jupiter retrogrades. And it is number 28, greatness in excess, changing to 31, mutual influence. Greatness in excess is a hexagram that talks about feeling overloaded, like you've just got too much going on. It's critical mass. You have to set priorities and make choices. And a lot of the times when we're going through these changes, we can feel overwhelmed by feeling like we have to do all of these things to prepare for the new start, to go through the letting go process. And we can feel just like we're just carrying a great weight. They talk about support beams of a house that are trying to support a roof, and that ridge pole, they call it, is sagging under the weight and the pressure. So we might be feeling pressure from all directions, and that seems to track with the grand water trines. We have all these planets going through this renewal, letting go process, and that puts a lot of pressure on our structures. So the changing line that we have is the second changing line, and it says, a withered willow sprouts new branches. An old man takes a young wife. There is nothing that is not beneficial. Now, Jack Balkin, in his Laws of Change book, says, it is unusual that a withered willow tree could sprout new branches. It is unorthodox for an old man to take a young wife. But both cases also symbolize hope and the possibility of renewal. In like fashion, consider how strange and unexpected elements might bring new life to the situation. Consider alliances with different people or unorthodox means of achieving your goals. People who are new to the situation may have a fresh approach. Join forces with beginners, with people in comparatively humble circumstances, and with those who have not yet made their way up the ladder of success. They will be grateful for your confidence. You, in turn, will gain much from their support, and you may learn something new and different from them. So sometimes this could mean revisiting something, right, that we thought was dead, that could sprout new life from engaging with people that we might not normally engage with, Mercury out of bounds, all of those things. And that's leading to mutual influence, reciprocity, mutual attraction, courtship, wooing, this kind of marriage relationship that the I-Ching talks about. Being able to have these beautiful, mutually harmonious and beneficial relationships. So this is something where this releasing process could lead to some wonderful manifestations moving forward. Okay, so the animal I got for you all today, let's see. I got to change something here. It's the seahorse. So here's our little seahorse again. I believe the seahorse made an appearance a few weeks back, but I feel like the seahorse might have been one of our grand water trine animals, and it's coming up again with the retrogrades, right? To say, hey, this is a time to take it easy, to be gentle with yourself, to be gentle with others. I'll read you a little bit from Animal Frequency by Melissa Alvarez, a really great animal oracle book. It says, seahorse symbolizes placidity, gentle movements, slowing down and enjoying life. It is the power of your subconscious, your higher self. It means to have a unique outlook, which may often be different from those around you. Seahorse has exceptional eyesight, with each eye functioning independently. One can look forward and one backward at the same time, which means you often see what's happening around you at many different levels. People may tell you one thing, but you can see deeper into the heart of the matter. Seahorse mates for life and meet each morning to do a pairing dance, which includes changing colors. This means that you're compatible and giving in relationships. Listen closely when seahorse appears. It can be hard to hear, as if it's whispering to you in a soft voice from a great distance, but its words will be filled with important messages that will help you grow in your personal life or in spirit. Seahorse means to focus and not take anything in your life for granted. It means to let go of anger, fears, and negative emotions. Be present, live in the moment, and share joy with those around you. It also might mean that someone may need your protection or for you to stand up for them in the near future. Seahorse is a reminder never to give up. Keep going for your goals with persistence, patience, and gentle forward motion to reap the biggest rewards. Seahorse means to be happy with yourself. It urges you to stop, evaluate, and consider your inner goodness and your accomplishments. Stop being so hard on yourself. You're a beautiful being filled with light and ambiance. Ambiance. You don't have to change anything for this at this point in time. Just be yourself and find joy, happiness, and contentment within. There will be time for change later, but for right now, just enjoy being you. That's good advice because remember, with these retrogrades, we're not going to be moving forward with the new start yet. This is the time to chill out, slow down, reflect. That time will come. January into March are the new start points. This animal will assist you when you need to bring peacefulness and gentleness back to your nature. Sometimes when you get involved in the stress of life in this hectic world, you can become frustrated, stressed, and irritated at everything and everyone. Seahorse is a reminder to let go of all those negative traits and embrace the gentleness within you. Everyone has the ability to be gentle, peaceful, and kind, but you have to choose to embrace those qualities and share them with others. When you need to let down your guard in order to become closer to someone or in your work environment, Seahorse can help you to do this without feeling vulnerable. If you feel as though you're bobbing around in life without focus or any true plan for your future, Seahorse can help you anchor yourself and evaluate the path that you should take. It can also help you to see barriers you've created that aren't needed and can help you break them down and move them out of your way. Yeah, a lot of times those barriers are internal. A lot of the times the narratives that we tell ourselves are circular, and they're based on the mythologies that we create our lives around are based on past traumas that need to be healed before we can actually create a different outcome in our lives. So I think this is a good time. Evaluate those old narratives, evaluate those old belief systems. Think about how you can move forward from a new story. How can we create a new story in our lives? How can we go back and see where those wounds might be and finally feel those feelings and those cathartic moments, and then move gently into our future rather than having it be this violent revolution or this violent change? How can we change in a way that can honor the cycles of the season and honor our need to do it in a slow pace, in a way that can be sustainable over time? Sometimes when we make changes too quickly, they're not sustainable. And this is really important. And I will guide you back towards the talk I did on Saturn and Neptune and Aries with Melissa Lafar on energetic principles. Sometimes when we move too quickly, we can burn out. And with Saturn and Neptune coming up in Aries, we are in danger of moving too aggressively to the new. And we have to slow down and take things one day at a time so that we don't burn ourselves out, so that we can be able to stay in this energy over time. All right, my friends, that's what I've got for you today. I'm just going to check in with the chat here. Make sure that you go follow me on social media at Spencer Michaud. Go sign up for a reading at spencermichaud.com. Go support my beautiful partner this week on Third Coast Mojo on Etsy. We might be trying to launch more, put more energy into Third Coast Mojo and potentially use that as a new start. And I think boosting some confidence by people going over and supporting her in a difficult transition time, I think that might help her out quite a bit. So you can go support Tanya over at Third Coast Mojo. That'd be awesome. Let's see. Just checking in with our chat before we go, friends. Let's see. Appreciate all of you in the chat and appreciate all of your wonderful comments. Kate says a red cardinal just landed in front of me in a bush. Oh, that's nice. That's a nice visit, right? Oh, I love that. Okay. Reminds me, Mariana says it reminds me of the beautiful song Seabird of the Alessi Brothers. Ooh, cool. I'll have to check that one out. Appreciate you for being here today, and I hope that your transitions are smooth as well. Oh, yeah. Collaborations with Sophie. Yeah, go check out my beautiful daughter at Sag Moon Magic on Instagram and TikTok as well. Definitely, she's doing some great things too, and I'm really proud of the work that she's doing. Javiera says, I'm going to ask for Christmas gifts through Tanya. Yes, perfect timing, Javiera. Yes, lots of great material for giving gifts for the people that you care about. Those Third Coast Mojo oils and soaps make excellent Christmas gifts. Whether you're asking to receive them or giving them to the people that you care about. All right, friends, I got to get out of here. I got some relaxing to do for the weekend, mostly chores. But I appreciate all of you. Have a great weekend. Take your time. Don't rush through the process. Go through the compost process. Feel your feelings. Heal those wounds and those past traumas. Reach out for help if you need it, and try to work through it together as a community. You don't have to be an island going through these things. And most of all, be kind to yourself through this process. It's so important to value yourself and the energy and the light that you bring to the world. Each and every one of us has something positive to contribute to the community and to the collective just by being themselves. So be kind to yourself, and that will help you to be kind to others. And we will see you the next time. All right, my friends, have a good one. Thank you for being here. Thank you all the new faces and all the old friends. And we'll see you the next time. Peace.